Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Hopefully everyone had a good Easter holiday and you're feeling nice and refreshed for the current week here. So currently, as it sits, Prestige Mode has been out for just a little over a week, and ultimately I am having a blast with it. I think it's an absolutely awesome addition to the game. Is it perfect? No, but I do think there's a lot more positives to it than negatives, and that's what I want to talk about today. We are going to start off real quick with just some of the things that I'm not crazy on, or I wish that they would improve in that. That way we can end the video on more of a positive note, talking about the things that I do like. For starters, I would say probably the smallest negative, and in all honesty, this is just maybe more of a personal gripe than there's something actually wrong with the prestige system, but that is just some of the cosmetic rewards. So I would say a lot of the rewards for prestige level 4 in that I do think are absolutely phenomenal and look incredibly good. I do, however, just kind of wish that the rewards for levels 1 through 3 look just as good. Granted, I do think level 4 should have a much better reward in that. However, it was a little bit of a bummer to see really the only big change in that from levels 1 through 3 was essentially a little keychain swap, which personally to me, I wasn't crazy about that. I do think the pauldron itself overall does look incredibly good. Just kind of wish that as you went up each level, it maybe just got a little bit more unique, or they added in some additional detail or made it just sparkle a little bit more, I guess we could say of that. Again, it's a very small gripe, and it's not one that's made me feel like I don't want to go through the prestige system with each class, because that would just be a lie. Like I said, at this point, it's more of just kind of like a little personal thing in that. But in terms of the negatives, things that I actually wish that they genuinely would change, I'd probably have to say the two biggest ones for me personally are the prestige perks themselves and kind of how the system in general works. So for starters, let me say that I do think I was a little quick to jump the gun with a lot of the prestige perks and kind of feeling negative towards them. I don't think they're as bad as what I initially thought. There's definitely some very usable ones. However, it doesn't really feel like there's that great of a selection of the usable ones. I would definitely say there are some perks that work a lot better than other ones in that. And unfortunately for me, that just means that there's kind of less variety in that I'll see people running around with. As of right now, it looks like in each particular class in that there's at least, I would say, 3 to 4 perks that are genuinely worthwhile using, and then there's a couple other ones in that maybe aren't all that great, which kind of means, with only 4 levels currently, those people are probably going to be running the same perks, everything like that. But ultimately, it is something that they could fix in that. I understand that it's kind of walking a very fine line in that, of where you don't want the game to feel too easy for people, even on higher difficulties. You still want there to be some sort of challenge, but I just would like to see some of the prestige perks feel a little bit more usable in that, especially because you are going through a little bit of a grind to get them. So I feel like it would be worthwhile to do that. My main gripe, though, with the whole prestige system is the fact that once you choose a prestige perk, you're unfortunately locked into it until you finish prestige level 4. Now, I would be okay with the whole idea of, hey, once you pick a perk for that prestige, you're locked into it and you can't change it until maybe you get to level 25. Give somebody a chance in that to at least change things up before they enter that next prestige level and are stuck with their choices again. My main reason for this is just because I do like to experiment around with different perks in that, see what would potentially kind of synergize well with other base perks within the game. And I just kind of feel that you don't really get to do that until you've really grinded out a class, and I think it's something small that they could do in that would really help encourage people to mess around, try out some different builds, and ultimately add more life on to all the different classes within the game. Again, I am very happy that you can change them, and I don't mind if there is some sort of in-game monetization, or I don't want to say monetization because that has a very negative connotation, but like using the in-game actual currency that you earn to reset them. I'm cool with that. just as long as there would be a way to give people a chance before they invest so much time into a class to actually get to try stuff out. Just because I know myself in that, you know, when I first started with the Bulwark, that's the first class that I completely maxed out. But I did kind of make a very quick judgment call on a perk that I thought would be really good. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I do know that it essentially allowed me to gain a small little damage boost in that for all my charge shots. I was kind of hoping that maybe that would include like the power whirl and the power rate. Unfortunately, it didn't. But because of that, I was kind of stuck with it for, gosh, I think it was 75 levels because it was the first perk that I picked. So I just think that, you know, being able to grab stuff or switch stuff up like that earlier on would be a huge benefit in that to most people. But in terms of things that I really, really like, I would say the main thing that I really enjoy is it does feel like a true prestige system. So I know that might be a very hot take, but let me just say I do feel that we have kind of been spoiled with a lot of modern gaming. Stuff definitely does, on occasion, feel a lot easier. And what I mean by that is, so I'm going to use Call of Duty as an example because that's really the main game that I've played that has a prestige system to it. But when you look at like some of the older Call of Duty games like COD 4, World at War, Black Ops 2, all those classic ones and that, whatever you prestiged, it felt like you were actually doing something that had some sort of weight behind it. You weren't just, you know, sitting there and essentially adding another number onto your player level. You were doing something that, you know, was gonna essentially kind of make the game a little bit more challenging. Personally, for me, I really enjoyed that, and I was glad to see Space Marine 2 do something that kind of followed suit in that. Granted, I know it's not for everyone, but I do think it encourages people to kind of go back and experiment with perks. Personally, I think I would have kind of gotten bored if I was just running the exact same setup, you know, for every class that I had been running almost nonstop since the game had come out. So I think by having perks reset, things like that, it was a good way to encourage people to kind of get out there, maybe try some new combinations, see if there's anything that actually plays a little bit better to their play style than, you know, maybe a quick guide that they first looked up whenever the game came out. To kind of piggyback off of that, which is going to sound kind of weird in that because I just praised the game for resetting the perks and making it more challenging, but one of the things that I like that actually kind of kept it fun in that was they did not reset your weapons. So again, I know that kind of sounds like a weird thing to say in that after just giving the game praise for doing that exact same thing with the classes, but I do enjoy the fact that I can essentially jump right back into playing on like Ruthless or Lethal without having to go back through and grind out all my actual gear for it, which to me was huge because a lot of my friends and I would say Ruthless is the main difficulty that we play on. I do enjoy kind of dipping into Lethal and Absolute here and there, just as a fun little challenge, but for a lot of the people I play with, they're not crazy interested in that. Ruthless is a pretty fair challenge for them, so it's primarily what we play, and I enjoy the fact that even though we all went back in Prestige, we were able to jump right back into it without having to start all the way at the very bottom. The other thing that I like too is about that is it kind of encourages people to, personally I think, better learn the mechanics of the game than that. So I know for a while there, especially earlier on, it felt like there was some parts of the community that were very unhappy with the play style, or they felt that it was too hard to learn, kind of stuff like that. But I do think the nice thing about keeping your weapons at that level and just removing the perks from the classes kind of encourages people to really master the basics, because you're not going to have maybe some of those perks that, you know, we've been using as crutches all this time and that, you know, to cover up for some of our shortfalls. Like, I'll be the first to admit it, you know, I definitely would run Invigorating Icon a lot in that, especially with some of my friends, just because, you know, hey, there would be times where I'd mistime something, as you've probably seen in this gameplay here. We've got smacked around a little bit. But even for them, it was just kind of a cheap and easy way to keep everyone in the game having fun, which isn't really that big of a deal, but having gone back, and I'm gonna again kind of stick with the bulwark as an example. Getting rid of that perk really kind of pushed them to, hey, I gotta figure this out. I don't have somebody who's just gonna drop the banner in that every time I make a reckless charge into an area I have no business going into. So I did really enjoy that part of it, and overall it's just been super fun in that to kind of go back through, experiment around with different builds, and kind of feels like in some ways I'm falling right back in love with the game and playing it for the first time. But overall, though, that's my thoughts and opinions on it. Like I said, it's not an absolutely huge thing, but I do think it's definitely added a fair bit of life into the game. My hope would be is that, maybe with some future updates, things like that, we would get to see maybe some more prestige levels added, some fixing up of the prestige perks themselves, and maybe some just new perks in general added to the game in that. But that's all I got for today. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.